and willow bark to reduce pain and swelling. Willow bark, by the way, contains a natural chemical that is the basis of aspirin, one of the most commonly used medicines in the world today. The Egyptians discovered its power thousands of years before modern science understood why it worked. But here is what makes ancient Egyptian medicine so interesting. It existed in a space between science and magic. Doctors in Egypt were also priests. A treatment might include a herbal remedy alongside a spoken prayer or a ritual. The physical and the spiritual were not separated. They were part of the same healing act. This mixture of observation and belief was not unique to Egypt. It appeared in ancient China, in India, in Mesopotamia, in Greece. All across the ancient world, people were asking the same question: what makes us sick and what makes us well? And slowly, carefully, one discovery at a time, they were beginning to find answers. The ancient Greeks made one of the most important shifts in the history of medicine. They began to ask not just what heals the body, but why. They began to look for natural explanations for illness rather than supernatural ones. And at the center of this change was one man whose name you may already know. His name was Hippocrates. He lived on the Greek island of Kos around 400 BC, and he is often called the father of medicine. Hippocrates believed something that sounds simple to us today, but was revolutionary at the time: that disease had natural causes, that the body followed natural laws, that a doctor's job was to observe the patient carefully, to record symptoms honestly, and to allow the body to heal itself as much as possible. He taught his students to watch, to listen, to ask questions, to keep records. He created a system of careful, patient observation that formed the foundation of all medical practice that came after him. He also created a code of ethics for doctors, a set of principles about how a healer should behave. The most famous version of this is known as the Hippocratic Oath. Even today, many doctors around the world take a version of this oath when they begin their careers. The phrase we associate with it, "First, do no harm," captures its spirit beautifully. Do not make things worse. Be careful. Be thoughtful. Be humble. After Hippocrates, Greek medicine continued to grow. Another great mind, a man named Galen, who lived around 200 AD, built on Hippocrates' work and added detailed studies of anatomy, the structure of the human body. His ideas, though sometimes incorrect, shaped medicine for over 1,000 years. The journey was moving forward, but it had a long way still to go. After the fall of the Roman Empire, much of Europe entered a period of great difficulty. Learning slowed. Libraries were lost. The careful scientific work of the Greeks was in danger of disappearing altogether. But in another part of the world, something remarkable was happening. In the Islamic world, stretching from Spain to Persia, scholars were collecting, translating, and building upon all the knowledge of the ancient world. This period is known as the Islamic Golden Age, and it lasted from roughly the 8th to the 13th centuries. Cities like Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba became centers of learning and discovery. Great libraries were built. Scholars traveled enormous distances to share ideas. And medicine was at the very heart of this intellectual adventure. One of the greatest figures of this era was a man named Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna. He was born in 980 AD in what is now Uzbekistan. By the time he was a teenager, he had already mastered philosophy, mathematics, and medicine. He went on to write a book called The Canon of Medicine, a massive, detailed work that organized all known medical knowledge into a clear and logical system. It covered everything from general principles of health to specific diseases to the effects of different medicines. The Canon of Medicine was translated into Latin and used in European universities for over 500 years. 500 years. Think about that. The work of one man, written in one lifetime, guiding the practice of medicine for half a millennium. Ibn Sina was not alone. Other Islamic scholars made equally important contributions in surgery, in pharmacy, in understanding the eye, in studying the spread of disease. They kept the flame of medical knowledge alive during dark times. And when Europe finally woke up again, it was largely because of what Islamic scholars had preserved and built upon. The story of medicine is truly a global story. It belongs to no single culture. It belongs to all of humanity. By the 1400s and 1500s, Europe was changing rapidly. Art, science, and learning were blooming in a period we call the Renaissance, a French word meaning rebirth. People were questioning old ideas. They were curious about the natural world. They wanted to understand things by observation and experiment, not just by reading what ancient writers had said. And in medicine, this new spirit of curiosity led to something that sounds simple, but was actually quite difficult: looking carefully inside the human body. For much of human history, the dissection of human bodies, cutting them open to study their internal structure, was considered wrong or forbidden. This meant that many descriptions of human anatomy, even Galen's, contained errors. Nobody had actually looked closely enough. But in the 1500s, a Flemish doctor named Andreas Vesalius changed all of this. He performed careful dissections of human bodies, looked at what was actually there, and compared it to what the old texts described. What he found surprised him. Galen had been wrong about many things. The human body was different from what centuries of teaching had claimed. Vesalius published his findings in a book called On the Fabric of the Human Body in 1543. It contained detailed, beautiful illustrations, drawings that showed the body as it truly was, layer by layer, muscle by muscle, bone by bone. It was a revolution, a quiet but powerful revolution. Medicine could no longer rely on old authority alone. It had to rely on direct observation, on looking, measuring, testing, and being honest about what it found. This new spirit would drive medicine forward at a pace that the world had never seen before. And one of the next great discoveries was about something no one had ever seen at all, something invisible to the naked eye, something that was, all along, at the very heart of disease itself. For most of human history, people did not know what caused disease. They had many theories. Some believed bad air caused illness. Some believed it was an imbalance of invisible fluids in the body. Some believed it was a punishment from above. None of them were right. But in the 1800s, everything changed. And it changed because of a small, simple tool: the microscope. The microscope allowed scientists to see things that no human eye had ever seen before. Tiny, living organisms. Bacteria. Viruses. A whole invisible world teeming with life, existing all around us and inside us. In the 1860s and 1870s, two men, a French scientist named Louis Pasteur and a German scientist named Robert Koch, built the evidence for what became known as germ theory. This theory said something that seems obvious to us now, but was deeply shocking at the time. Specific diseases are caused by specific, tiny organisms. A germ enters the body. It multiplies. It causes harm. And if you can stop the germ, you can stop the disease. This discovery did not just change medicine, it changed everything. It changed how hospitals were designed. It changed how doctors washed their hands. It changed how food was stored and prepared. A doctor named Joseph Lister began using antiseptic techniques in surgery, cleaning instruments and wounds to kill germs, and death rates from operations fell dramatically. Before this, surgery was extraordinarily dangerous, not because of the cutting, but because of the infection that almost always followed. Now, with clean hands, clean tools, and an understanding of why cleanliness mattered, surgery became far safer. The germ theory of disease is one of the greatest discoveries in human history. It saved more lives than almost anything else. And it came from curiosity, from someone asking a simple question and refusing to stop looking until they found the answer. If the entire history of medicine were compressed into a single day, almost everything that defines modern medicine happened in the final few minutes. The 20th century brought an explosion of discovery, so rapid, so extraordinary, that it is almost difficult to believe. Let us start with one of the most famous accidents in scientific history. In 1928, a Scottish scientist named Alexander Fleming returned to his laboratory after a short holiday. He found that one of his petri dishes, small containers used to grow bacteria, had been contaminated by a mold, and around that mold, all the bacteria were dead. The mold had killed them. Fleming was curious. He studied the mold carefully. He found that it produced a substance that destroyed bacteria. He called it penicillin. This was the world's first antibiotic, a medicine that kills bacterial infections inside the human body. Before penicillin, a simple infected wound could kill a healthy adult in days. A child with a throat infection could die within a week. Pneumonia was a death sentence for many. Penicillin changed all of this. It went into widespread use during World War II, and it saved millions of lives. The discovery of penicillin opened the door to an entire family of antibiotics that followed, medicines that today treat infections that once terrified humanity. But the 20th century brought even more. Vaccines became more widespread and more effective, eliminating diseases like smallpox that had killed hundreds of millions of people throughout history. New surgical techniques allowed doctors to operate on the heart, the brain, and the eye with extraordinary precision. Medical imaging, X-rays, then ultrasound, then MRI scans, allowed doctors to look inside a living body without cutting it open at all. Every decade brought new miracles. Every generation of doctors stood on the shoulders of everyone who came before them. Today, Medicine stands at a place that would seem like pure magic to anyone from even 100 years ago. Surgeons can perform operations through tiny cuts, guided by cameras smaller than a fingertip. Doctors can analyze a patient's DNA, the unique biological code inside every cell of the body, and design treatments specifically for that individual person. Vaccines can be developed in months rather than years. Organs can be transplanted from one person to another. Babies born months too early can survive and grow into healthy children. People live longer, healthier lives than at any other point in human history. And yet, medicine is still on a journey. It has not arrived. There are still diseases we do not understand. There are still infections that resist our best antibiotics. There is still enormous inequality in who has access to good health care and who does not. There are still questions that science has not yet answered. The story of medicine is not finished. It is still being written, right now, in laboratories and hospitals and research centers all over the world. Young scientists are sitting at microscopes, asking the same question that healers have always asked. Why do we get sick? And how can we heal? The tools are different. The understanding is deeper. But the spirit is the same. It is the spirit of curiosity, of care, of the deep human belief that suffering can be reduced, that life can be made better if we keep asking questions and keep learning. That spirit is ancient. It is as old as those first healers who placed herbs beside the